Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy.
Story number 1. They Sing Into the Void, written by Lords of Jew. It's a dull, empty piece of space. The Western spiral on. Nothing happens here, not unless it's planned, prepared, and plotted out in excruciating detail. And that's how it worked, and worked well, for 15,000 cycles. Utter, complete blandness. And in the dark, from no, aimed at nothing in particular, we heard them as they began to sing. They were not singing for us. They sang for themselves, to calm their nerves, to remove their fear, to steal their soul, to bolster their flagging morale, to boost their spirits, and to make the last mad frantic dash to clear their hellscape of a world. They sang to each other, calling on their own to spread your wings, a call to take to the heavens and pierce them, to fly behind the world's veneers and rise higher than ever before as a species. And they continued to sing. This time they raised their voices in joy, triumph, and congratulations. They fought amongst their own kind for an interminable wars, and still they persevered. They were believers in the one true faith, and its sole doctrine was this: don't stop us now. This was fuel to their forges. It ran their ship, streamlined every choice, and blasted through every possible barrier, because they could still sing. And they sang on further still. Their first ever encounter with sapient life outside of their own was marred with destruction, not glory. The fight was terrifying, with debris fields the size of planetoids flooding the space lanes with dead and rotting hulks, both once living and always dead. Their songs did not cease, though. They sang in mourning. They sang of loss, of pain, of confusion, to find a meaning to it, to see an end somehow, any way they could, just to make it stop hurting. To have lost so much, all they could do was continue forward at the same speed, tempered now with slowly chilling resolve. They sang about being the chosen few, the hammer to fall cosmos. They sang even more. When next they met a menace which stood in their path, the songs were raised, and the pitch was fervent prayer that the blockade would withstand them long enough to verify the truths as they knew them, that they were the righteous in their choice, that fate cast them as the chosen few to make them whole anew. They sang of being good company. And then they smashed through a flotilla of individual blockades, each one capable of withstanding a rogue moon. They went through them like a burst of ionized gas through a pail of water, and rose as gods. Nothing slowed them, not even as they stripped the enemy dead and dying of their fuel, drive systems, and weapons, leaving naught but hulks behind them. They did not stop, because they were still singing in the dark, bleak void. Then they heard the single thing which stilled them entirely. The voice of a league of peoples oppressed, ruined, left to fend for themselves in the wake of renewed attacks by angry warlords. Of ruined futures, empty hopes and bellies, the song of mourning, of the end of things. It was our collective voice. We sang into the dark because we could do nothing else. And then we heard them, the echoes ringing from 1,000 points of light around the system. And the skies which were night so long became as day, ship after ship landing and providing deliverance, healing us, beating us, raising us up not to our feet, but to their shoulders. Then, above them, we were elevated to their equals and accepted, because we sang into the darkness, and it struck their hearts. And now, the Deny, you may look outside your collective perimeters, all across this eastern spiral arm, and survey what you have found awaiting on your doorstep. The tens of thousands of shuttles, skiffs, cargo haulers, and wreckers, all dragging their weight or more in rocks, asteroids, and stellar debris, each one crewed by the maniacs of the songs in the darkness, all readied to execute sharp turns on demand, freeing payload after payload aimed at your core worlds. And behind them, the millions more who heard their song and are all coming for you. Can't stop us now. We sing now, all of you Deny, and it is not a mournful dirge, for we are joyous in our duties. We will rock you. End of story. Story number 2. What do you do if you run out of ammo and there's still killing to be done? Written by HL S810. Edouard Delay was a long way from home. He had been aboard a transport ship bound for the Pinnacle Alpha in the Pinnacle system when they suffered catastrophic failure of their FTL drive, not unheard of, which had forced the crew and passengers to take to the emergency cryostasis evacuation pods. Being put into suspended animation for as long as it took to be rescued was better than dying of dehydration while adrift in space. His pod ended up drifting through interstellar space and crash-landed on a underdeveloped Class 7 temperate world. That is how Edward came to be on Ululul in the Ululul system, a Yule colony world. The Yule were a semi-aquatic race of cephalopods with the propensity for engineering, who had recovered his pod from the ocean. This particular colony world was essentially one large wave farm, converting the motion of the waves into electricity to charge huge batteries for industrial use. Due to its remoteness, it was barely utilized, meaning there was no regular transport that could get him home, and it would be a while before the human Commonwealth Space Fleet could get a shuttle out to pick him up. In the meantime, he passed the time by talking to the Yield engineers. They were an odd bunch by human standards, polite, but entirely devoid of personality. The only exception who interacted with Ed with any regularity was Yulol. Yulol was a curious young apprentice Yul, with an affinity for mechanisms and a morbid fascination with the destructive inventiveness of this warlike barbarian from a Class 10 world. They talked at length about weapons designs. It turned out that the Yule Guild Union, their version of an interplanetary government, had adopted a form of kinetic pulse technology, refined it to the point they deemed perfect, then rejected any attempt to refine or replace it. The prodigious variety of weaponry that humans had produced was of great interest to the inquisitive student. Ed had regaled Yulol of the longbows, trebuchets, firearms, rockets, flamethrowers, railguns, and diamond monofilament anti-personnel bolo launchers. Basically warfare through the ages. All of these examples of previously unknown forms of weaponry had inspired the impressionable Yule into working on his own project. Edouard tried to provide as much information as he could remember and help troubleshoot the problematic designs, but was ultimately kept in the dark. One day while Edouard was in the store closet that had been converted into his cabin, chewing on a fillet of rubber fish, that's what he called it through the eel creature that was apparently a local staple. It tasted like boots and was full of protein. He received a hollow message from his squid buddy. "Good quality greetings, my friend. The project is complete. Meet me on Pier 5 at your earliest convenience. Ed made his way through the few air-filled tunnels of the underwater facility to the surface-level access port. He opened the weird handle of the hatch and emerged to the welcome sensation of soft sea spray and the boom of breaking waves. The arms of the massive facility branched out over the sea surface, and from those arms branched out even further arms, lined with flotillas and buoys that bobbed up and down in the rolling waves. Yalol was on one of the wide gantries that ran the length of the main arm, stood with his long prehensile tentacles coiled underneath for support, relying on its flimsy cartilage to keep the bulbous, blubbery head upright. Ed's boots caused the gantry to rattle, alerting his friends as to his presence. The 8-foot-tall, greenish-grey Lovecraftian entity with 6 eyes of various sizes turned as he approached. "You finished it." "I have indeed. I have set up some targets for you to test it on," said Yellow from somewhere within the mass of wriggly limbs. Ed eagerly took the proffered gun. It was heavy, even for him, and it seemed as though Yulal had taken all of his ideas and tried to fit them all into one weapon. Yulal gestured at the weapon. "It is a multifunctional weapon made from the alloy that negates detection of energy discharge. I have reduced recoil to the tolerable limit for my species, so it should be negligible to you." Yulal pointed a tentacle at the core. "It features a rechargeable battery, 3,000 shot capacity of Class 10 rated compressed kinetic pulses with burst option of 10 to 100. It also features a variety of other fire modes. The automatic target recognition and acquisition system can be set so that the first round impacts is tracked as a beacon for guided shots." Ed selected the setting, aimed it at a metal plate, and popped up some distance down the gantry, and fired a short burst, causing all subsequent shots to home in on the original one's impact, continued Yulal. Sure enough, Ed's casual shots had all surprisingly had a tight grouping. "On the side of the mount is a grade 9 particle cannon with 3-shot capacity, but I will thank you for not testing that one here." Ed sagged his shoulders in disappointment. "It has a telescopic barrel that can be extended, and it can be converted into a long-range rifle capable of delivering a round accuracy up to 1.5 Yulal, 63 mile." With a click and a clack, Ed modified the gun. "If you can aim for that target on Pier 4, Yulal gestured. Ed zeroed in on the target and found the sights to be effortlessly intuitive. He put a round through the marked target with ease. "Twist this bit, and it has a reloadable net launcher for non-lethal takedowns, with an integrated electroshock device to temporarily disrupting muscle functions without causing significant injury. I've only been able to give it the capacity of 4, but if you want more, I would have to sacrifice the final feature. With a turn of the dial, you can utilize the adjustable plasma stream discharge valve with a custom-sized canister. It can fire a concentrated blast of superheater plasma up to 30 meters. Or, if you prefer, it can saturate a wide area with 15-meter range and flaming plasma." Ed pointed the weapon at the first target and drenched it with a blue fire. He may have cackled maniacally. Who's to say? Apparently able to discern the companion's approval, Yulal said proudly, "I was hoping to market it as a replacement for the Odinson Mark III infantry cold gun rifle." "What?" "That's a Brit gun," Ed objected. "You can't go putting this in the hands of Brits. It belongs in the hands of Americans." "Do you think that they would be interested in my creation?" Yulal asked. "Oh, hell yeah," Ed said, with a gleam in his eyes and a grin on his face. Suddenly, he frowned. "Where the hell do you put the bayonet?" End of story. The algorithm reckons you should be watching this video next, and I recommend that you should be always watching my video. So, clickety-click. Worth
energy!
And yes, clicking that does help the channel. Thank you very much. I just want to give a quick thanks to the Tier 5 patrons and channel members. Alithia, Barky, Futic Yol, Cam Maxwell, Caspar Onholtz, White Band 420, Lord Asrakal, Arcalian, and Oakfield.